now broadcasting?
Yes. Hello, we are broadcasting. This is the Wild Witches from the Wild Witchcraft channel on YouTube. And we have a new host here. He's going to give his small intro, then we will go into the conversation of what happened this week at Pulse, the LGBTQ plus community, and our thoughts and opinions about things. So go ahead, Manu.
Hi everybody, my name is Manuel and my patent name is Corvus Lucio. I'm 28 years old and I'm a Spaniard, so sorry if I mispronounce something in English. I identify as a Celtarian polytheist as my regular religion. For witchcraft, I identify as an Iberian traditional witch, because my practice is focused on folk magic in the Western world, but with a special focus in Spain, Portugal, and the Basque Country. And that's all for now, for an intro.
All right, thank you so much. We appreciate having you here. We're happy to have a new host. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
My name is Random, and I'm going to start us off. Last week, Sunday morning at around 2 a.m., there was a mass shooting at the Orlando nightclub called Pulse. It was a LGBTQ plus nightclub, and 50 people lost their lives, brothers and sisters, mothers, fathers,
siblings.
50 more people were actually shot, so almost over 100 people were injured and 50 people lost their lives in this mass shooting. That was, before anything else, it was a hate crime. And this happened in the United States, but it is surely being talked about around the world. If you did not know what had happened, it started at 2 a.m. and ended completely around 5 a.m. to where the police were taking people out and making sure everybody was okay. The gunman lost his life after a shootout with the police, after many hours of taking hostages, and no matter what the political movements are saying, we need to acknowledge that this was above and beyond anything else a hate crime against the LGBT community. And I'm not saying it wasn't a terrorist act, because anything this size, I would call it a terrorist act, whether they were from America or somewhere else. I would still call it a terrorist act.
One of the big things to remember is that terrorism is just as causing, doing an act of violence with the intent to cause terror. It's not a religious term, it's not inherently a political term, it's a term meant to be, you're doing an act of violence to cause terror. And no matter what your religious, political, whatever ideology you have, the minute your act of violence is purely to cause fear and terror in people, then that's an act of terrorism. No matter how many people are injured or killed, it's an act of terrorism the minute you're trying to cause terror in people.
Yeah.
As a member of the LGBTQ plus family, people, community, whatever you want to call us, I've seen a lot of a lot of fear and emotional, just the community as a whole in the United States and probably other places right now. I see a lot of fear. I see a lot of hurt, um, myself included. I had nobody that was directly linked to this. I did not lose anyone, yet I still feel as though I have lost brothers and sisters I never knew, because I am a part of this community, and it has caused me. I said it on a video of mine that this month was supposed to be our victory. This month was supposed to be our celebration, and now I feel like it has become a funeral, which it has. It has become a time of mourning. And I've seen a lot of people react in the way of they don't want to leave their homes. They don't want to go to the places that they thought they were safe, because that happened at a place where all of our community goes to these gay clubs, these gay bars, because that's our safe haven. That's our place where we can be who we want to be and not have anybody judge us, let alone hurt us, let alone kill us. That's our one place where we think we're safe. And it's caused a lot of, especially younger people, a lot of fear to go out into the community again. But I will say that I am proud and shocked and beyond proud of all the people that have come out in support of our community, our own community included, during these Pride marches, during any vigils. I'm so proud of the people who are not afraid to step out of their homes and out of their safe havens and be in public. And I think that every single one of those people, to me, that's an heroic act against violence and hate.
And as someone else in the LGBTQ plus community, I'd like to remind people, please don't let it stop there. If you're one of the cisgendered and straight people, someone not in the community who has come out in support of us, please don't let it end with this shooting. Don't let it end with, oh yeah, I showed up at the vigil, because that's wonderful. I'm very happy you did that, but don't let your support end there, because the minute your support ends there is the minute the next person can want to do something as bad or worse. We need to keep this going and keep promoting us and trying to remember that we're human. We're people just like you. We're not. I've had to hear people over this on the other side of things saying things like we deserved what happened to us and that we're not even human. And it's sickening to me. And just please remember that we're people like you. We're people with hopes and dreams and everything. And we deserve happiness just as much as you. So it's been a really hard time for me too, just to try to cope with everything and everything that's been going on with my community. So, yeah.
I have this to say. I'm a queer femme. I'm 55 years old. And what strikes me, and I hear it from y'all, from a lot of different people, is about the fear they suddenly have. And in a way, it makes me very happy to hear that, because it means we did our job from Stonewall. It means that we created a space that was safe enough that people could go out and feel safe and not worry. I hate that this happened. I hate it. I had to wait for friends to check in to make sure nobody that I knew had died. My rage was tremendous. And then I kept hearing people say, well, I'm scared to go out now. I'm scared to go out now. And I thought, y'all, That's how people were in the 50s. Don't let this act of violence wreck 30 plus years of hard damn work. Because that's what it was. Stonewall was awful. I wasn't there. I know somebody who was. You know, but the drag queens and the bull dykes are the ones that stood on that front line. They're the ones that got their heads beat and got rocks and glass thrown at them. They're the ones that did all that work. So don't let this, the act of one person, and we don't know what the shooter was. And I will point out that at 49 people died, one person chose suicide by cop. And I'm pretty clear about that because the shooter, you know, was he homophobic and lashed out? Was he an ISIL terrorist? I don't think so, based on what he said. I'm no expert.
I do know. I did have someone tell me that he actually had said when he called. I know they keep quoting, especially in conservative media, that he called and said he supported ISIL, but he also apparently supported another group that's at war with ISIL. Is like what he said.
He didn't use the right terminology.
Yeah. But
So
still,
we don't know what he was doing. There's a very, very strong chance that this was an act of self-loathing. From everything I've seen and heard, you know, it sounds like it could have been an act of self-loathing. He was raised to hate being homosexual and hate anything that associated being homosexual to him. And it may have been him lashing out at himself and taking a hell of a lot of good people out with him.
And I don't mean to interrupt you, honey, but I will say one thing. That fact, if it is a fact that this was a crime of self-loathing, does not take away that it is a hate crime.
No, not at all.
And I've heard people say, well, if he was gay, it can't be a hate crime. And I want to be very clear that yes, it was a hate crime.
Yeah.
No matter if he was gay or was not gay, it was a hate crime.
It was domestic terrorism. You know, regardless of why he did it, it was a terrorist act.
Exactly. Based on the definition, terrorism is the desire to cause terror in other people and committing an act of violence for that. And that's exactly what he did. I mean, given the fact that very much of our community is scared right now. I mean, and yeah, we are all trying, we hear what you're saying about, you know, trying not to let it undo. But I think in the wake of this, some of us are being reminded a little more how tenuous our circumstances can be.
Mm-hmm.
And that, you know, it's 1 minute it goes from, you know, getting support from high-end people to dying. And I think it's very scary. And people like Donald Trump in the media are making it scarier because people are feeling like they have more leeway to come out and say horrendous things and do horrendous things. And I wouldn't say it's his fault. I'd say he's an example of what is going on in our society right now, especially in America, and how our culture, especially certain very bad areas of our culture, is creating this place where someone like Donald Trump can become the Republican nominee, and it's kind of terrifying.
I wanna say something because I hear how most people is saying that they're afraid to go out and stuff like that. I speak from a privileged place because for us Spaniards, these shootings that I have heard since I was a child, it was like literally an American thing. It's not something that we heard from our country or from our neighborhoods or whatever, but it really shocks me that I always have heard about these shootings in high schools, in offices, whatever. And almost no one that I heard of stood up to support the killer. And now, with all the media that now we get internationally, we're receiving here in Spain, or I am receiving here in Spain, a lot of knowledge about the people who is standing up for the killer. And it really shocks me that these people can be even allowed to speak with such hatred when that hatred was in first instance, the one that triggered the killer to do what he did. And they're allowed to say those things that are terrible. And I don't understand how that can happen.
Well,
So,
I will explain why that happens. America is very free with its mouth because we always say freedom of speech comes first because it's our first way of telling people our opinions, and we're supposed to be free to do that. But I agree with you that spewing hatred, it boggles my mind how it's not illegal to say, oh yay, all the pedophiles have been dead or have been killed, or well, that's a whole bunch of sinners that are gone, yippee. Like, I don't understand how someone in America can actually go out to a church and preach that this was an act of God, taking away abominations off the earth. That's actually, I've been seeing these posts on social media, and it boggles my mind how a person can hate so much. I don't understand how someone can say those things or even think those things. I don't understand it, and I know I never will. And I'm actually happy about that, because if I could understand that kind of hatred, I don't want to be a person that can understand that kind of hatred. But it still boggles my mind.
She froze up, I guess.
Yeah.
In America, there was a man that was running for president called Ted Cruz, and he and a bunch of other Republican candidates went to a rally that was mainly Christian, and it was run by a preacher that was so anti-LGBT, like he was anti-gay, so much that he was preaching that the government should go and actually execute all the gays. And that was where our candidates were going to speak. And I don't understand that. And it hurts to say that that our candidates are going to these rallies, because there's a man that spoke not 15 minutes before them, leading the whole congregation to fight for the government to kill so many of the people of its country that are just different. And they don't understand that difference, and they hate that difference, so they want to kill us? This happened. This just happened.
Yep. And I think what I find
was a
interesting...
man, it wasn't the government, but still this happened, and you wonder why? You are shocked that this happened, people? Open up your eyes. Our candidates went and talked at a rally about this very thing. They may not have said it out of their mouths. They let another man say it for them. And now our people are dead. Wake up.
I have seen a lot of preachers in uploading videos to YouTube or any other platform saying this kind of stuff. Even in Spain, I was so shocked about this. Even in Spain, a hashtag was created in Spanish. The hashtag said, matar gays no es delito, which means killing gay people is not a crime. And I was like, wow, like in this country have always existed homophobia, but not to this level, not to create a hashtag that is being retweeted by thousands or millions of people. So I just don't get it. I dislike a lot of things in this life, things that I dislike because just don't match with me, or things that I almost hate. But in all cases, I don't feel like I have the right to judge to the level of saying that I should kill those people. So I just don't get it.
Manu, I have a question for you. You talked a
Yeah.
little bit about Basque, right? About the Basque people?
Sorry, the what?
About the Basque people, the Basque?
Yeah, the Basque.
Didn't they have, or wasn't there at one point, almost not an ethnic cleansing, but some there where that people, they were really looked down on and they were hated as a cultural group? Am I misremembering that? I thought there was something that went on like in the 70s with that.
Well, the thing was that Spain, despite what might being sold out in other countries, we don't have a unique culture. There are different cultural or ethnic groups that were the roots of the country. Different, how do you say this? Different kingdoms came together through marriages and political marriages and stuff until they formed the country of Spain. So there are many remains through languages or traditions or dances or folklore or whatever in different parts of Spain. And some decades ago, a dictator raised to power, and he was a Catholic fundamentalist, and he believed that the true one culture of Spain was the Castilian culture. So he tried to wipe out any cultural differences that was not considered Spanish by him. So he wasn't trying to perform a genocide, but he was trying to wipe out any sort of tradition or language or different way of speaking that was from Catalonia, Basque Country, Cantabria, Galicia, whatever. All had to be Castilian, and Castilian was Spanish, you know. So yeah, it was not like an ethnic cleansing, but it was a cultural cleansing, or even if you ask me, a tribal cleansing.
Yeah. And I think that when we look at things like that, and when Random talks about the hate towards gays, we're different. We don't fit their norm. And it's a real deep-seated instinct to get rid of what's not like the other. Animals do it. Animals cut somebody out of the herd that's limping, that isn't like them. So how do we change that mindset? Because that's instinct. That's lizard brain jumping up here.
Well, one of the things I find interesting about, at least about the LGBT stuff, is there was a new study done of millennials, especially anyone under, I think, 25, and they actually found that under 25, over 50% of the population identifies as somewhere in LGBT. A lot of them as bisexual or or pan or any of the other things. So it's literally over 50% of my generation does not identify as straight and cisgender. And I think that's at least an evidence of a cultural change going on. That
Charlie, I want to ask you a question real quick. Because
yeah.
I think this would be good, because I think you're the youngest one here. Do you think that the older generation, I'm not generalizing the whole generation, but the ones that have a hatred, a dislike, a cringe to our community, do you think that they fear the fact that we're outgrowing them and they're going to be gone soon, and it's going to, we're going towards a place in the future where this stuff, it won't happen anymore because we are going to be 50% or more of the population. Do you think that they're frightened of that?
I think what they're frightened of is change. I think people like that are stuck in their ways, and they don't. It's very difficult for them to view change as a positive thing, and I think that change scares them. And whatever that change is, I mean, segregation was the same way and still is, unfortunately. You know, the fact that we don't have race segregation. I mean, I still hear people saying we need to go back to that. I'm like, what? You know, I still hear these things, and I think it won't be gone anytime soon. I think it's going to be a long-term problem we're always going to have to work with. I think once we work through the overt discrimination, we're still going to have the same issue they're having with race right now, where we have systematic and just cultural issues with it. And I think that's going to take a lot longer to get rid of. But I think we're definitely working towards that, and I think it's beautiful, in my opinion, to see it. And I just see such a more accepting generations coming on. I mean, even, you know, kids that are 3 and 4 and 5 right now, you tell them, yeah, I'm dating a girl, and they're like, oh, okay, and they just don't even care. I mean, I've seen places where people are like, the only issue these kids could find with, it was an example I saw where the one was a teacher, and she said that her kids in the school, the only issue they could find when the one boy said he had a crush on another boy and wanted to get married, the only issue they could find is that he was 7 and couldn't legally get married yet. They didn't have any problem with it. And I just think that's evidence of what our generation is going towards. You know, we're going towards a time where if you're a guy, girl, non-binary, whatever, and you want to like anyone, we don't even care anymore. And that it's not a thing to be upset about. It's not a thing to have problems with. It just is. And I think we're going towards that. And I think probably in the next few generations, most people will be like that. Unfortunately, I think there's going to be for a very long time still groups that are not okay with it. I think it's going to take a few generations before we really get to a point where, you know, you're not going to still deal with discrimination. I think it's going to be a long time, especially for the trans and non-binary and agender and asexual and those communities that aren't talked about as much, that are still, and even the bisexual groups that are still pretty erased a lot. I think bisexual is definitely coming along. But I still see a lot of misconceptions about things like asexuality, and it's a problem. I see people tell me, oh, you know, I'm on the asexual spectrum. Asexual is generally a spectrum, and I see a lot of people come to me and say, well, you're hurting your boyfriend by dating him because you're asexual. And I said, no, doesn't work that way, you know. And it's difficult. I still have a lot of things I see, a lot of discrimination out there, even unfortunately within the LGBT community itself. I see a lot of things, especially with gender variant people and people who aren't gay or lesbian. I still see stuff, and it's sad. And I think the community, even in itself, needs to really work on that. And I think only when we're strong in each other are we going to be able to overcome discrimination from other groups that don't understand us.
But I have seen over the last couple of years, I'm proud to say that I have seen a lot more acceptance in the LGBT community itself.
Oh, definitely, definitely. I just think we need to keep working on it.
Genders of the rainbow. I mean, you can name them all, you know what I mean? I've seen a lot of more acceptance of that. I myself am bisexual, and about like 10 years ago, I was like pretty ostracized from the whole community because because you're
supposed to pick a side.
I wasn't able to be trusted because you get the people who want to, you know, who say, well, you're just curious. And, no, I'm bisexual. Well, I can't really trust you. I mean, I was ostracized a lot in the beginning.
I've seen it all. You're gonna cheat.
But I've
be
seen
whatever.
A lot of acceptance lately, and that is wonderful. I'm very proud of it. I want to ask Manu. You are from you're from Spain, right? So
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, as a person of international, we all here with you are Americans. We don't get to see a lot of what goes down in the LGBTQ plus communities internationally. Could you give us some examples of maybe things you've had to deal with? Is it safe over there for you? Do you receive a lot of hatred? What do you deal with?
Okay. Apparently, and many people don't understand my situation, I have been very lucky because I realized that I was gay very, very late, like when I was 18 years old or something like that. And I didn't start to receive direct, straight homophobia towards me until I was like 25 or 26 years old.
Oh, wow.
The thing is that the right wing or a right wing party, I think it is said in English, political party.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's right.
Okay, they won the elections, and they are doing nothing to protect minorities of any kind, including women. You know, women that are abused in their households by their husbands and stuff. They're completely unprotected. The abortion rights have been going backwards since they got elected. So I've been experiencing some homophobia, especially online. I think that people feel very protected in the anonymity of an online website or whatever. I don't feel especially attacked, but I think my situation is different. I have uh, I have never been afraid of bullies. I started to look like a metalhead since I was like 14 years old. So I'm from a small town. Many people were afraid of me. They thought that I was a Satan worshiper or something. I'm actually wearing a satanic band T-shirt. So people were really scared of me when I was a teenager. So I didn't have a problem. But lately, since this party got elected, I read somewhere that the aggression, the physical aggressions have raised, and that just in this year, in the city of Madrid, just in the city of Madrid, there were more than 80 physical aggressions that were denounced. We don't know the ones that weren't denounced. So yeah, it's not like I don't feel like it's extremely toxic environment for LGBTQ plus people, but we're going backwards, and I'm afraid of that. I'm not afraid of people. I feel very confident right now, but if things don't change soon, we might get like in other countries with this type of hatred right now, like the United States of America or some other countries that we have heard a lot of physical aggressions as well as, for example, France. So let's see, we have elections again, like in a week. Our parties didn't go to an agreement. They had to go to an agreement because they hadn't enough votes by themselves. They didn't go to an agreement, so we have to vote again. And let's see if things change.
Well, hopefully they do. Arwen, I know we only have you for a short time. Could you give us some of your insights, some of your opinions, some of your feelings? Let's give you till you have to leave to just, we want to hear from you.
I come at this whole hate stuff from a different perspective. I've been in bars where we had a light, a special light, that if the bar was getting raided, the light came on so people could get out the back. I've sat outside a club in Dayton, Ohio, and had young men, probably 20-ish or under, roll by and yell faggot at my girlfriend and I when we were sitting out. And we both turned around because we were trying to see if somebody'd come out. And the boys came back around and yelled it again. And I responded with, no, dyke. I mean, if you're going to insult me, at least use the right derogative. And I don't think dyke is a derogative anymore. I'm now married to a man, so I still identify as queer, but I have a man for a husband. But the whole concept of what what we have today for gay community versus what we used to have. I mean, yeah, I know I'm talking about, I went to school uphill both ways in the snow, but we didn't have the internet. We didn't have video chat. We had the people in our town. That's it.
And if you were unlucky and had a bunch of bigots.
Well, and it wasn't even that. It wasn't even, that people hated you. They didn't understand. I know people who grew up in small towns, in small southern towns, and they tell me their experiences there were way better than when they got to the city, where people are supposed to be so much better. I think that we broad brush paint a lot of things when we shouldn't. It comes out of fear and reaction. But we have to remember that by doing that, we're kind of just, it's just like whites and blacks used to do. Whites said all blacks were this way, and blacks said all whites are that way. Well, it's not true. It's just not true. And we have to learn to react and work with one another from a loving perspective. Yeah, people are going to hate. People are going to be violent. Humans are a violent creature. Humans have been shitty to one another since the word go. The pagans didn't like the Christians, so they fed them to the lions. Then the Christians got in favor, and then they started burning the pagans. We have never, as a people, been nice to each other. In Spain, they had Franco, who was an asshole. And here in America, we've had more than our fair share of assholes. The problem now is that because we're a global community, everybody gets to have their opinion. And we all get to say, "Man, you're from Spain, you must be flamboyant and cook tapas, because that's what Spaniards do." No, we don't come to each other one-on-one. And I don't come to Manu and say, "Oh, okay, so tell me who you are. Share with me who you are. Let me make a decision on whether or not I'm going to like you as you are." Not with this preconceived, "Oh, he's a Spaniard. Well, all these things. He the tango, right? You tango every night, right?" It's stupid stuff. And I get really fed up with it because there's so much more to people, and there's so much more. I honestly, and this sounds cynical, I don't think we'll ever get to a point where we can just walk into a room and say, "Oh, look, a group of human beings." Some part of us categorizes, labels, and puts in places because it's easier for us to organize that way. If you go to a gay bar, it's really easy. All the boys like the boys and all the girls like the girls. I know which side of the bar to stand on, unless you're in the middle.
I'm sorry.
Or you don't like anyone because you're asexual.
And it's so.
And you're just there to spend time with friends.
Yeah, so that's my coming at this. This whole Orlando thing has stirred a lot of stuff up. And a lot of it is going to be good in the long run. And I have heard a lot of the older folk, my generation and older, say, "Well, these kids don't know nothing. They think they can walk into a bar and just walk out and nothing will happen. Man, in my day, I got hit in the face and I got spit on." And okay, Grandpa, Grandma, okay. But we have to. And I don't know what the answer is, obviously. I don't know what the answer is. I pulled a card, before we started, and I got the Lovers. I pulled a card now, and I got the Ace of Water. All of these cards are about love. Love. Love's the answer. The Beatles knew that, But how do you love everybody? Because here's what my Wiccan high priestess told me. We're all standing in a circle, and we've done a ritual where we've taken a ball of yarn and passed it around and woven a web, literally, and we're all in this web. You can't move unless the whole group moves. And she looked at us, she said, isn't this wonderful? We're all connected. It's beautiful. And then we're all like, yeah, lady, it's really cool. It's wonderful. Wow, my mind is blown. She said, and just think about it. This web, it spreads out over the whole world. You're connected to everybody. And we're all going, great, that's, wait, what? Everybody? Because at that time, I don't know if y'all remember Anita Bryant, but she was one of the most vocal homophobes of my time. And I was like, wait. I'm connected to Anita Bryant? Rush Limbaugh? Fucking A! I want out. You can't get out. You're still connected. You're still a part of it. You still have to deal with the fact that you're in the same web that everybody else is. It was a really valuable lesson for me.
Can I ask you a question, Arwen? I myself, when the days following the shooting, when I was seeing these reactions online and the glorification of the shooting by other people, mainly religious groups, hate groups, stuff of that nature, I noticed in myself a rage and an anger that scared myself, because I almost could understand, wanting to wipe out somebody, and that really scared me, because all I could think of was, man, the world would be a better place if these assholes weren't here, and I go, that's what started this.
Yeah.
I was scared of my own thoughts, because I had to go into prayer with the goddess and say, please take these from me. I don't want to think like this. I don't want to think like the man that took away lives.
And we're assuming that the shooter was mentally stable.
We also want to remember, though, not to blame mental health, because I see that argument a lot, too, where people will say, oh, well, obviously it was his mental health. No, I think what we're forgetting is that this is a complex thing. There's not one piece we can go. I think we want to blame one thing. We want to find, some people want to find maybe a mental illness, and that's the one thing they want to blame. Or other people say, oh, he was, I'm blaming that he was Muslim, and that's the one thing they want to grab onto. We need to remember it's a complex issue, and I have to interject this because as someone who has multiple mental health things, I get frustrated by that, because I see that argument a lot. And I see that argument used into people to, for example, recently there was a woman who was thrown in jail for killing her child who has cerebral palsy. She injected, the woman was on an IV, and they injected the IV with a poison and killed the woman. And then the mother tried to kill herself. And the woman was an adult. The mom lived, and they tried to give her a lighter sentence because, oh, she really cared for her daughter. No, she didn't. If she killed her daughter, she didn't really care for her. And, they're saying to the mom, well, maybe she had some mental health issues. But the thing is, that woman's health status of having cerebral palsy and some mental stuff was literally being used to make her worth less than a human for her crime. The woman didn't even get the normal penalty for murder. Even not the death penalty, but just didn't get even a normal sentence for it, because she got just a few years in jail or something. It's like 3 years in jail, I think, and that's it for killing.
I want to say something that will add on to what you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
There are many people with the same problems that woman or this man could have had, that lead completely violent lives. Right. No violence. Lives.
Yeah, and I think one of the main ones that's brought up a lot as this is a violent diagnosis, for example, is schizophrenia. And I know schizophrenics, several of them. I know several people who have diagnoses of schizophrenia. They're not violent people. They're scared of their own brains. Every day they have to wake up and hear stuff that they know isn't there logically, but they can't even tell. Shadows behind them and stuff like that. And they're terrified. They're some of the least violent people I know, thinking of the ones I know personally. And everyone can say, well, you know those people personally, but most schizophrenics, because I know that's one I hear a lot, that, oh, schizophrenics are so dangerous. They're not. Generally, most of them are not. There's exceptions to everyone. Anyone with anything could become violent, no matter what.
So I think what we're missing...
Go ahead, Arwen.
Oh, I'm sorry, Charlie. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
Let's see
fine, go ahead.
finish.
No, go ahead.
When I say mental health issues, we all have mental health issues. I have mental health issues. I have diagnoses that I simply don't share. Statistically, I would say that everybody, I don't know that anybody is, quote, normal.
I don't think there is a normal.
I don't. I think we're all variations of it. But I do think, and I'm using the George Bush fingers, oh, fuck me. I do think, where did that come from? I just looked, I'm doing this like, at this point, we got 1,000,000 points of light, 1,000,000 points of education, no kid left behind. But mental health does have a play in this. It absolutely does. We cannot deny that it does.
No, I wouldn't. I just think we want to be careful not to...
Let me finish. Wait. Let me finish. I just did the mom thing, right? Chick. Because we don't have an emphasis on ways for people to get help. We don't have, many of the people that I know that have different mental illnesses have help. You know, I'm in a very class privileged situation that I have a therapist I can talk to every week if I want to. That's a privilege. That's something I have because of age, because of income, because of job and insurance. It's a privilege. It shouldn't be a fucking privilege. It should be something everybody has access to. And when we don't, we create a society where people who have, and I have a friend who's schizophrenic, and when he's good, and when he's not good, he's in the hospital. And that's what works for him. You know? But we got to do something that addresses that issue. You know? And I'll lay a bomb right before I leave. I am not anti-gun. So I'm pro background check, but I am not anti-gun. I was not raised that way. It doesn't work in my life. But people who have weapons, because somebody who's going to use a gun to hurt somebody is going to use a car to hurt somebody. They're going to use a knife to hurt somebody. They're going to use a rock to hurt somebody. The inclination to hurt. Now, they can't hurt as many people with a rock as they can with an assault rifle.
Hey, Arwen, can I ask you a question?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm actually kind of pro-gun too. I mean, my fiance actually wants to be a gunsmith, so I'm kind of more on that end with it as well. So my question, my fiance and I were kind of brainstorming a bit of a, option that maybe they could think and go with to maybe not have this kind of problem again. Although I will make the point that this guy worked for the government, so he could have gotten any clearances he wanted. It wouldn't have mattered what laws he put in place. But an interesting idea we came up with is that every single person who wants to own a gun has to pass a hunter safety course. Because then you learn how to safely handle a gun, learn how to safely handle any type of gun, because it includes crossbows, guns, anything. So you learn how to safely handle them, you learn the laws for your area, and it requires someone to learn all those things before they could own a gun.
Mm-hmm.
And we also said that anyone with any kind of a violent criminal background is not allowed to own a gun. Domestic violence, anything, no gun. Because you've proven yourself to be violent at that point.
And here's a thought. What if everybody who stands with Charlie and I, or who stands completely anti-gun, joined the NRA and started working as a voting member of the NRA?
That'd be hilarious.
Can I ask you both something? Because I myself, I was taught by my father how to handle and respect a weapon, but I don't own any as of right now. Personally, myself, I don't think we need military-grade weapon in the streets.
Not at all.
I will ask you both a question real quick before you guys have to leave, before Arwen has to leave. What do you think?
I don't have to leave. She does.
Okay. Do you think that if we treated guns the way we treat medication, that it would be any different? Because it's way, way, way harder to get medication than it is a gun. I don't know if you guys have tried to go and get medication before. There's so much shit you have to go through in order to get it. And this medication cannot be used to, like, kill dozens of people at a time, and yet...
Yeah, it can, but...
You know what I'm talking about.
But
like,
yeah, you can poison someone's food.
No, I understand that. I do get you. But it's a lot harder to get, let's just say, sinus or cold medicine that you're supposed to have to get better. It's harder to get that than it is to go get 17 guns. What if we made it more of a, not invasive, but a better process in order to get these weapons and ammunition, such as, I personally don't think we need these fancy magazines that have 30 fucking bullets to a magazine. What if it was just 10?
Most states do have magazine limits, and the states, especially states that allow semi-autos, for example, Pennsylvania does not allow semi-autos for hunting. Most states actually do, semi-automatic guns for hunting. Automatic guns are banned throughout the whole country, so if anyone has an automatic gun, it is illegal. But most of them do have magazine cartridge limits, so you're only allowed so many per thing, and 30 is not usually anywhere near its limit. I think it's a lot lower than that. It's usually like... Sorry, my fiance's in the house, I can't ask him right this minute, but he knows all those laws. I think one of the big reasons those kind of things, they don't ban them as much is, honestly, as my fiance has pointed out, certain guns are scarily easy to build. And what's actually really scary, he said, is that, and he really knows this stuff, I mean, he wants to go to school in the winter for it, is that it's actually easier for someone to build a fully auto gun than a semi-auto, which is the scary part. I mean, you know, you can't buy a fully auto, but to home make one, it's actually apparently a bit easier. Not that he'd ever do it, but he said, in theory, that's a lot easier to build. And that's the scary part. Semi-autos, and people started trying to make black market ones, they'd be able to make full autos easier than semi-autos.
Yeah,
that's the terrifying part.
Yeah.
My boyfriend literally went on the internet. It took him 10 minutes to learn how to make an automatic weapon.
Yep.
But I want to ask you something, guys, because since I interact with American people, I have always heard all these arguments. Some of you are giving on your behalf or on behalf of others, that some weapons can be easy to make up, that some can be bought in the black market, etc. But if that's what actually happens, that's the reason that the government doesn't want to ban weapons. How is it possible that in other countries where fire weapons are banned, people don't construct weapons in their homes, people don't buy weapons in the black market? Well, they buy, but not that much as Americans fear that will happen if the government bans weapons. How is it possible?
I think a lot of that's due to the fact that we have a lot more... it's easier to get things like a home lathe or things like that.
Bye, Arwen.
That can be used to make
Thank you for being on with us today.
Yeah.
Bye, darlings.
Sorry.
Seek joy, y'all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, Arwen had to leave. I'm sorry for interrupting. I just wanted to say
fine. But yeah,
what
I was saying about that is that it's very easy in this country to get a hold of things like lathes and other machining tools to make your own guns, whereas in other countries that kind of machinery isn't always as readily available. For example, my fiance's dad owns his own machine shop, and there's at least 5 or 6 different lathes there. We have 3 at the house. I mean, they're not made for making weapons, but it's very easy to take those things and make them into things. Plus the fact that we have absolutely no censorship on our internet, really. You know, a little bit, but not that kind of thing. And it's almost impossible to censor the internet anyway. Even countries that tried it, they end up having to make their own entire servers to try to control that. So the thing is, in our country, it's very, very easy to get a hold of machinery and tools and metal, because we have tons of scrap metal lying around. It's almost dirt cheap right now. That it's very easy to get the supplies you need to do something like that. Whereas in other countries, that's not as prevalent of a thing. whereas making your own stuff at home is not as
Yeah.
easy. I mean, you don't have the same tools, if that makes sense.
I'd like to
Yeah.
answer you as well, because I can kind of sense that you were asking a broader question. In my opinion, because that's all I have, the reason why America, and I'm saying this as an American, and I don't hate America, I'm happy to be in the land of the free. The thing about Americans is we want to be free so badly that sometimes we go against our government stepping in and making us a safer country because we fear dictatorship. Like we fear our government overstepping their own boundaries. Because the reason why we were founded as a government was we wanted to be free. And Americans hold on to freedom so, like, with a death grip, you know, so tightly that a lot of the times the majority will say, we'd rather be so free that we're out there killing each other rather than have our government step in and make us a safer country altogether. Because we fear.
We also got to remember that.
We fear it.
We also want to remember that a lot of families, like my own, for example, we hunt for most of our meat. Most of the meat we eat in the house is not bought from the store. We go and get it ourselves. And especially in my area, that's pretty common. Most people in this area don't really buy their own meat. I mean, except for things like chicken, and we actually go to local places that sell the chicken. We don't, you know. And some people I know actually raise their own chicken meat. I mean, it's especially my area is very, very self-sufficient. You know.
I understand, and I'm completely.
No, I'm just saying that's I think part of it too. I think that's a factor too.
I think self-sufficiency is wonderful. I myself live in a more rural farmland type of country now, but most of my life I've actually lived in cities. And they weren't really big cities, but they were cities. And I actually grew up in a town where the two corners of my street had a meth house and a crack house. And my meth house was literally my neighbor. So I grew up around all this stuff. I grew up around, you know, hearing gunshots. I grew up around, don't go on the other side of the tracks. It's not safe. Okay? I lived it. I was there. You locked your house. You locked all the windows, all the doors. You never stayed out past dark. I lived it. I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, I grew up in Philly, actually. I grew up in
And you know
Philadelphia.
exactly what I'm talking about. It's hard because am I freezing?
Keep freezing up.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of trouble with guns in usually what you see is trouble with guns in bigger cities, but the little cities we have a lot of trouble too. We have so much like drugs everywhere, and they're getting into the smaller towns because that's where they think they can set up new shops. So not only do you see an influx of different drugs, and it becomes the main drug of that area, you see a influx of guns, of fear, of, I mean, I'm literally in a town right now where there's shirts I see around town that says, kill your local heroin dealer. That's the shirts these people are walking around with because that's how bad the heroin is here because we've had so many deaths. And this is a rural town. Like, this is literally not very big. And I see shirts around town saying, kill your local heroin dealer. because it's that bad. So I went off on a tangent. I'm sorry, but
That's right. To explain
But
like what I saw as a kid, when I was 8 years old, the house across the street got raided, and it was a crack house, and nobody actually even knew. I mean, they kept it. We were in slightly off of Philadelphia, so it was still considered Philadelphia, but we were like a little bit over from it. And yeah, we saw stuff. I mean, the guys. I mean, people keep poured out of the house. Just the other week, one of the my family members in Philadelphia who still lives there, my cousin, the house next to theirs was some sort of drug house, and a dog got shot that the drug dealers had in front of 3 children, and it was pretty traumatizing for the kids. I mean, they sent their dog out front, well, they ran out the back, and the poor dog got shot right in front of a bunch of children, and unfortunately, these are the things we see happen, and it's very, very scary. And I think maybe a big solution would be maybe to demilitarize the police. Just my personal opinion there. I think.
I will say this. When you have people that are citizens that have better weapons and armor than your military and your police, that's when these shooters know that they can kill like dozens and hundreds of people before the cops can actually take them down. That's what happened.
But
That's what happened
scary
at Sandy Hook. That's what happened at I know I'm going to say it
no,
wrong.
but the big issue I see is
I can't remember.
when small towns can buy tanks, and I'm not even kidding. This happens. Small towns can own 2 and 3 and 4 tanks. We're talking little
Seriously.
tiny towns that don't need that, and they can own machine guns and all sorts of things. And unfortunately, it's a big issue, especially in very racially divided towns, where we have towns where the majority of the police force is white, and the majority of the citizens are of ethnically diverse people of color, and it's terrifying. And I see, my friends online posting about, I'm scared to go outside today because there's a bunch of police nearby, and I'm scared I'm going to get shot. And you have these people, running away, and they're shot in the back by a cop. And then meanwhile, you have, a white kid who can steal a car and cause a bunch of car accidents and race all around going 90 miles an hour, and they actually try to stop him. The affluenza teen and all that crap. It's just, I think.
Do you think that it would be better if we had like a more lengthy process to become a protector, like in whether you're in a sheriff's station or a PD station, that's police department for Manu. Do you think it would be better if we had a more lengthy process to become those that serve and protect?
I don't think that's going to just help on its own, though, is the problem, because just having a longer process, the people who are really out there, racist and everything, can pass any exam you give them, because they know how to answer the questions to make sure, no matter how many tests you gave them, they could pass it all, and that's the scary part. I think a big thing would be having a way to make sure that police officers are held just as accountable as any general citizen, that they can't skirt around it and get out of trouble and, I'll just get out of trouble for that. And they do, things where I also think, and unfortunately with how bad this is right now in this country, the backlog is ridiculous. I mean, they're trying to still investigate that woman who was found dead in her cell. And they're just like, they still haven't even gone through it. And it's insane. It's just so frustrating and overwhelming, honestly, to just go.
It's hard. It's hard because in America,
I think we need a way to hold our local police forces accountable when they do things.
yes.
When a police force is showing really blatant signs or even subtle signs of racism, there should be a way for the general citizens to go, this needs to be looked into, we want to know what's going on here, and a way to look into that. And we don't have that right now.
Manu, do you have anything like what we're talking about?
No. Actually, when I hear Americans talk about anything that can be gun related, whether they're citizens owning guns or the police department owning different types of fire weapons or tanks, as I have heard say Charlie. Uh, I don't mean any disrespect, but I want to give you an insight of how crazy Americans look internationally. Like, literally, uh, there was like some decades ago, we started to think that maybe if Hollywood films were right in what they showed in the films, Americans could be a little bit crazy about guns because we saw that, for example, any how do you say this in English? When you force your entry into someone else's house?
Breaking and entering.
Yeah. And you saw any character that was, you know, like someone who owns a shop or any other regular job, taking the gun from the drawer and trying to shoot the robber or whoever it was. And we back then started to think that might be a little bit crazy about guns, if that was true. But now that we're receiving real news about shootings, about um, gunfights, about the sort of stuff that doesn't happen here, it's like, is this seriously happening? How is it that they don't ban all the guns except for the police department and the military and some few other groups? It's
I have
like,
to say that I agree with you. I agree with you. If I didn't live in America, I'd probably be scared as shit to even ever come here, ever. Because that's how scary it is sometimes here. Like, I've had these conversations with so many people, and I always come across as a left-wing, liberal, hippy-dippy because I'm like, listen, let's just ban guns, but I know that won't happen because there's so many guns already. And unless we do like Australia, and that's just not going to happen because I'll tell you right now, you're right. We're
I think the
crazy,
easiest way to explain it is there is literally a
crazy
gun
about guns. And it's come to this point. This is my opinion. This is my opinion. America is gun crazy. Other countries live in less of a blood-drenched every single day because they don't have so many guns in their country. They have a stricter set of laws about guns, and it keeps so many people in that country safe. And I get it, honey. I get it. I get that this.
No, the other thing I was going to say is I know some friends in other countries that are even more conservative and have no guns in the common populace. But I think it also depends on what kind of country we're talking about, because there are examples of countries in you know, Africa, Middle East, those kind of places where there are no guns, but people are dying at even higher quantities for anything the government doesn't like, you know, being LGBT or another religion or anything, you know, Syria, those kind of countries where just being a woman who goes outside without a burqa could end up with you dead. And I think we just have to remember that, you know, depending on what country we're talking about, it also affects a lot of other things. You know, if you're talking about a country like Denmark, yeah, they don't have as much of a gun issue. But if you're talking about a country like Syria, it's on the other end where so much of the military and other people have weapons and no one else can defend themselves. So I think there's also, you know, it depends a lot on which country we're talking about and what other factors there are. I think just removing guns from a country doesn't always help, I guess is my point. Okay. Not saying it doesn't, I'm just saying there are definitely cases where that show the exact opposite end.
But the thing is, I understand your point, and sorry, of course I wasn't talking about countries like Syria and some Middle East countries or whatever. I was speaking mostly of Central and Western Europe, which are the countries that from my country we interact most with. But the thing is that you're debating on whether it is better or worse to own guns or to ban them or to have a stricter control on them. And the thing is that I don't even know what to say because I think it's a cultural thing too. From my perspective as a Spaniard, it's literally inconceivable to think that I want to go to a course to learn how to handle a gun and then buy a gun for myself to have in my house as a I am a sign language interpreter, and I'm also a laboratory technician. And it's like, why the fuck do I need a gun? It's literally the thought that most Spaniards will tell you if they're not policemen or into the army or anything like this. So you're discussing if it's better to ban, to control more, or to keep it that way, and it's like I can't be opinionated on this because I have never thought ever to have a gun to defend myself, to hunt, or to any other mean that you can think that a citizen needs a gun. So that's why I'm just giving the international insight, but I can't give any other opinion because it's just something that I have never conceived in my mind for good, for good or bad. It's not like I think there should be much more weapons here in my country, or there should be lesser or fewer weapons here. It's like only forces and authority need those guns. I don't need it for anything. And it's curious because I don't know how this works in your country or the different states, because your organization of states and laws is also amazing to most of European countries. Just think that each state, sorry, has some different laws, etc. It's also something to address someday, but I don't know how that works there. But here, even I don't know the name for this in English, but non-fire weapons like knives and stuff like this, all of those are also regulated. You can't go with a knife or how do you call this, a Swiss something?
Swiss Army knife?
Yeah, you can't go with one of those in my country at least. You have to have a special permission. Actually, some weekend groups are having some gatherings and some reunions with different governors because they need to take a ceremonial tool, which is a big sword, and they can't go out to the street with that sword, even if it's not sharp, even if it's inside a bag. So I have this culture, and you have what seems to be cool free guns for everybody. I know it's not that way, but it's what seems from the outside. So I really don't know what opinion to give because I don't have the whole information, I think, and I'm not into that culture either.
Well, I don't think we'll ever be able, and I understand the enjoyment of hunting, even though I don't hunt and I never will because I couldn't enjoy that. I understand the necessity for that.
Sorry, bugs.
Oh, okay.
What?
I understand. There are places in America where a person needs to hunt the game, the animals around them, because they cannot get to a store, or they just are not. They don't have enough money to feed their families. So what they do is they go and they hunt.
A big thing I will mention specific to Pennsylvania is we have such a large deer population that if we didn't hunt the deer, they would actually. Oops, sorry, my light went out. they would actually overtake the entirety of. My light won't go back on. They would actually overtake. There we go. The countryside. We have such an issue with. This does not want to stay on. It's really driving me crazy.
We can't see you, hun, because your screen is completely blank.
I know, because my light went out. I'm outside, remember?
Yeah.
Give me a sec, I'm trying. See? Having issues. Sorry. But yeah, there we go. We have such an issue with the deer population here that if people don't actually hunt the deer, they eat themselves into starvation and kill all the other wildlife too. It's actually, unfortunately, a really huge problem. So, I mean, that's just a very specific issue to Pennsylvania. But yeah, we have a ginormous deer population. They're actually having issues with not having enough hunters right now to be able to control the deer. Because in my area, the deer have no predators, no natural predators.
I understand the need for that, and I understand hunting. I myself was raised with my father who went to gun shows, which, Manu, I'll explain a gun show. A gun show is a big flea market, right? That all they sell is guns and weapons and knives, and it's a whole warehouse full of like a bunch of people that sell really just a whole bunch of guns and a whole bunch of knives, and sometimes like really weird shit, and a whole bunch of ammo in the same place. That's what a gun show is, and that's what we go to all the time.
But you're forgetting about the totally not actually bombs, totally not put together yourself bombs. You're forgetting about those.
Yes, the craziness that is a gun show. It's a crazy thing. I understand that. But I used to go to them as a child. I was like 7, and I would walk through a big warehouse full of guns and knives and people selling them to random strangers that they didn't know. And nobody asked any questions. I actually got my first gun. My father bought it for me. And I started shooting guns, learning how to use guns at the age of 10. And I know how to use one. I respect it. I understand why you would use one. I choose not to, because I believe that our society would be safer and better without this mass of guns in the country, because now it's gotten so much that if we even wanted to, Menno, we wouldn't be able to get all the guns out of the country, even if we wanted to.
Yeah, I guessed that out a couple of weeks ago when I was thinking about this. But I have a question for you, because I want to invert a little bit the roles. So before I told you that the physical aggressions to LGBTQ plus people have raised lately in my country. I know you probably know nothing about my country, so that's the whole point of the question. So I explained you the situation. These aggressions were mainly performed by 2 or 3 people. They were physical, and they were mainly, people beating up LGBT plus people, etc. And the thing that shocks the most to experts and stuff is that many of them were in a square that is called Sol. It's one, if not the most important square in the city of Madrid, and it's right near to how do you say this? You know, we use a word that translated to English is not the one that you use, but I can't remember the one that you use. You know, the place where LGBT people gather and where all the clubs
Gay
and
bar?
places for LGBT.
Like
Yeah,
the
but it's not the
community
bar.
center?
It's the neighborhood.
Okay,
Sorry?
the gay neighborhood. Yes. Okay, gotcha.
Okay, it's neighborhood. Okay, so it's really, really close. Like, you go across a street, it's, I can't tell in feet because we don't use feet, we use meters, but it doesn't reach 1 kilometer of walking, and you're in the gay neighborhood. And there is where the beatings and the physical aggressions were done. Now I ask you, do you think if we had a higher rate or a higher mass of fire weapons, even half of the ones that you have in your country, those beatings, those physical aggressions, would be shootings and killings and similar stuff?
Yes, I do. I do think that they would be.
I think some of them would be. I
No,
think some of them, maybe
I
not
think
all.
most. I think most, in my opinion, if those people wanted to hurt LGBT people so badly that they would go and they would beat them with their fists and risk other people beating them back, they'd be a lot more likely to use a gun because those people wouldn't be able to fight them back. So I think they would be more.
I respectfully disagree on that, mostly because I still see physical beatings in this country as well as shootings. So, you know, people I know still get beat up and assaulted sexually and told that, you know, we'll fix you and all that kind of stuff. I still see that in this country. So I don't think it would. I think that would still happen. I think both would happen.
I agree that both
Okay.
would happen. I just think if it were available. I think if it were more available like it is here, there'd be more shootings. I'll bring up LA. Manu, I don't know if you know this, but in the same weekend that the Orlando shooting happened, we had a Pride parade or march or whatever you want to call it in Los Angeles, and there was a man that was caught by the police with several guns, assault rifles, and even stuff to make pipe bombs on the way to that parade, and he was stopped.
Yeah, I read something.
So what I will say, why I'm bringing this up, is our leaders, our politicians, are supposed to lead us as a country, okay? Our leaders and politicians, for the most part, have failed us as a country. They have failed us in the way that instead of bringing us into the future, bringing us into a sense of unity as Americans instead of segregation and hate, that's what they've done. They've brought us into another century, or however much you want to call it, another decade of hate, bigotry, racism, fascism, because, like we say, we're America. We're the crazy ones, right? But we try to be the leaders. We try to be the ones that take the first step out onto the edge. We try to show that you can be a free country, you can be safe, you can be whoever you want to be and live your dream, and that's supposed to be that's supposed to be the American dream. Every man and woman is equal, and they have the right of finding their happiness and living the way they want to live. Now our leaders, some of them, I won't say all of them, some of them have shown in the media, in their rallies, in whatever you want to call it. I'm not pointing fingers at just one. I'm saying many across the board have brought us back, have brought us backwards, because they're still preaching their hatred and their bigotry and their racism. And if you're different, you're bad. If you're a different color, you're worthless. You're bad. You're a rapist. You're a criminal. Just because you have a different color of skin, you believe a different way, you are bad than I. And that has got to stop, because that's what leads to times of this nature. That's what leads to, I'll say it again, I said it in this very video, I said one of our politicians that were a candidate for our presidency went to a rally with several other candidates for the presidency, and the preacher there that ran the whole thing was preaching that the government should kill all gay people. Several months later, what happens? Some people think, someone thinks it's okay to go kill a bunch of gay people. Cause, effect, you see what happens.
Yeah.
Our leaders are failing us. They're failing not just this community, they're failing all of us.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing with this kind of hate speech that I've been finding lately is that how much does it contradict itself when it comes whether the hate speech is supporting of one ideology that the politician is into or not, because you have these Christian pastors telling people that I actually saw a Christian pastor. I think he's become pretty famous lately. I can't remember his name, but he was one that said that he didn't support the shooting, but that gay people should be put to death through the proper channels, which was the government. Okay, and you have this guy saying this, but then you have I don't know how you pronounce this in English, an imam or an imam, a Muslim priest, saying something similar, that all infidels should be put to death, that the entire country should be converted, etc. And you have the same preachers, the same politicians that supported this preacher, saying that you can't be in a position of power within a religion, which in this case is Islam, saying this kind of hatred towards a nation that have accepted them or whatever. But then you have the Christian counterpart saying the same, and your answer is freedom of speech. So it's something that really, really amazes me about your country. I don't want you to believe that I hate your country. Actually, I would like to live there. It's like a major goal in my life. But now we're pointing out the bad things, and these are
I think
things
every
that
country needs to be reminded of things they need to improve on. So there's nothing wrong with reminding us sometimes of what we need to improve on.
I am
Okay.
so happy that we have an international person. I'm so happy that we have you now, because the international opinion, even though I'm generalizing your opinion for every international person, and that's horrible, but it's good to
Don't
hear
worry.
you. You know what I mean? Because we're here, and the thing is, we've been saturated in stuff like this so long that it's normal for us. It's normal for us to hear about this kind of thing nowadays.
Yeah.
And it's not
To
for
me,
you.
it's something unbelievable. I am shocked. except for the few exceptions that I told you lately that has been coming up in my country, like this hashtag I told you and the raising of physical aggressions, etc. It's something that to us is unbelievable. We have rapes, we have some shootings, we have some murders, we have politicians or rapists or whatever that literally go away with murder, but the level of things or how massive they get to be when it happens, like 50 people dead in just one shooting, it's something that I'm absolutely not used to well, not live because I have not lived it, but not even to see or hear of or
Well,
hear about.
Well, I
So
will say that this is the largest mass shooting in American history.
Not quite. There
For
was
a
one
civilian, though, it
larger.
is.
There
Isn't
was
it?
one larger, and it was 180 people died, and they were all Native Americans. It was 1880 something.
yeah,
But it is worth
But
mentioning that there was one larger in this, or 19
I
something.
I, I read linking to the topic of witchcraft a little bit. I read the author Robin Artison. I don't know if you know about him.
say it again.
Robin Artison.
Yes.
Okay, he posted something because I have him friended on Facebook, and he posted something that this wasn't the biggest shooting in the history of America, but I can't remember which one
Yeah,
was
it
the one
was the
that he
one
said.
that I'm talking about. It was Native Americans. They were all rounded into one, basically, literally a pen, and just shot at, and they killed 180 of them.
Was that? But
Wow.
was that the government, or was that a militia, or was that a civilian?
I
Does
think it
anybody
was a
know?
group of people who forced them into it. I don't think it was
Okay.
directly the government, but it
I
still
just
does
wanted
count.
clarification.
I can't remember the exact story, but I do know that was officially the biggest one. It was 180 people who died in that one.
Okay.
And
So
that is
Okay.
considered
yes.
the biggest one, but I don't remember exactly. I know it was a Native American tribe.
Okay. So, but
Again, minorities though. Love that one.
no, that's a good thing that you brought that up. I didn't know that, so I'm glad that you brought those facts to light.
Yeah, I just forget which tribe and what exact date it was, but
Most
yeah, that was
shootings
bigger.
in America, just so we're telling the international people, most don't go above the number 30.
Yeah, I
There's
think it's
usually
like
about
30 or 40.
25 people in the last, like, I'd say the last century. I think the last century, 50 is the biggest number, because the last time I looked at the little list, I think the second largest number was something about 28 or 30. So this has
Yeah,
been the
because
first
there was
time in
Sandy
modern
Hook,
times
there's
where it's
Sandy
gotten this
Hook,
big.
and there's Nickel Mines.
Yes.
Nickel Mines was actually right down the road from me. The Nickel Mines shooting was right down the road from me, where I
But
live now.
all right, so we've talked about all the gun stuff. We've brought politics into it. Let's talk about we've talked about the LGBT community, how it's affected it, how it's changed in the U.S. I know you say that things have changed for you. We're going backwards. Let's talk about the things we can do to help. Let's talk about the things that we can do to change it for the better. Does anybody have any ideas?
I think just keep supporting each other and keep recognizing that hate does not need to win, that love needs to win, and that we need to work on not generalizing people so much. So, when you hear your neighbor or your friend or your family saying things like all these Muslims and all that kind of thing, or all these gays, you need to correct them. And I know that's really scary and that's not always possible, but I think as within your safety as you can do it, correct people. Because until we change this mindset of us versus them, and I think the biggest thing we need to remember is that nobody is purely evil or purely good. Everyone is shades of colors and mixes of opinions and thoughts and great things they've done and horrible skeletons in their closet. And I think that's something we really need to remember, that no one is blameless and no one is entirely evil, no matter what they've done, even people who've done really horrible things have probably done something good in their life. They probably donated to charity or helped some child cross the street or helped their old grandmother. You know, and it's humanizing people. That's the important thing to remember. That you need to humanize even people you don't like or don't agree with. Because until we can get past this mindset of us and them, we're not going to work together to build a better future.
Yeah. To me, the main thing to do from now on, and it was always the main thing to do, is education, especially to the youngest generations, but education in general. I think that's a real need. I don't know how it goes in your country. In my country, we have a very good standard sex education by now, but in many schools, in many areas, especially small towns and stuff like that, you don't get sexual diversity, exceptions, etc. They're not into the mix. It's like this is how you be safe. This is what you can do when you get STD. I think it's in English.
Yeah,
This
sexually
is what you
transmitted infection, STI.
exactly. And this is what you can do if you get an unplanned pregnancy. Um, the sexual diversity, that not all people are monogamous, and not all people are committed, all those kind of stuff literally don't exist in sex education,
Okay,
or at
so
least the one that I received.
I just want to let you know
Yeah.
that in a lot of American states and school systems, we don't even get that much. A lot of schools, especially in my area, for example, teach abstinence only, that the only thing you should be doing is not doing anything. They don't cover anything. I actually know of a teacher who, when asked about a specific female body part, thought it was a myth. A teacher teaching about health education thought that, I guess I'll use the censored version, the female pleasure button was a myth. That
It's
did
really
not.
bad here. It's really bad here because the thing is, honey, I know, don't even get me started. For some reason, our school education system is still in the dark ages where we believe that sex is a sin instead of scientifical facts about sexual education, the body, diseases, protection. It's so hard for anybody to figure these things out, and it's ridiculous. I myself will talk about my own experience with a doctor. With a doctor, my friend. I went to a gynecologist. This is a person who's supposed to know everything there is to do with a woman's vagina and how to deal with it.
Yeah.
I asked her about protection. No. Here's the deal. Let me tell you. I went to my gynecologist. I asked her, I'd like to know more about sexual protection. And she goes, just wait till you're married. A doctor. A doctor said, a doctor. A doctor fucking said that. And I go, I was married, and now I'm divorced, and, you know, what do I do? I'd like to understand about sexual protection. And she goes again, just be abstinent. A doctor. A doctor said that.
If I were in your place, I would literally tell her to give me her job because she is unable to perform her job.
Exactly.
I mean, seriously.
It's ridiculous here, honey. It is. It's just ridiculous. Instead of scientific facts and medicine, they want to believe about sin and just wait and be abstinent. That shit does not work. We need science.
States that have abstinence-only policies have the highest rate of teen pregnancy because no one knows how to deal with it. And we rely on people from YouTube giving educational things on it because our teachers won't do it.
You know what?
Anyone,
This
by the
makes me
way,
want to do a whole series on sexual education, and that's what I'm gonna do on my fucking channel. I'm gonna go through every fucking thing you'll ever need, and we should all do that to try to get the message out, because our own educational system don't fucking do it.
I was actually going to say, anyone who needs education on this, I can recommend an excellent YouTuber, Laci Green. She does a phenomenal job on explaining everything about the female body, male bodies.
We will put her channel below in the description box for you when we upload this channel.
Yeah, she does a great
Just
job
for
in
you
really
guys.
helping people understand things. She's taught me some stuff, so anyone who's watched this video and really needs to brush up on sex education and what it actually is, do recommend her video.
Okay, I'll check it out tomorrow because it's freaking late here in Spain. But I'm interested in that channel. So, what time is there?
Right here it's 10:46 p.m.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to need to get going in the next few minutes to get some sleep tonight.
Yep. I want to thank you guys for everything you've done. Manu, did you have a channel you wanted to recommend?
Well, I have my channel. If you mean that, if you mean my channel,
yes, go ahead.
I have one. It's called Corvus Brucio Nemeton. If you can, well, I can send you the name and you put it in the information box. It's basically about Celtic Iberian polytheism, because it's my religion, traditional witchcraft, and anything I feel I need to rant about. And that's my mom telling me to shut up. Vale, baja la voz.
All right. Thank you guys so much for being here and talking with us.
No problem.
To the whole LGBTQ plus community,
Thank you.
We love you. We support you. We're behind you. We're a part of you. We will pray for you. We will do anything we can for you spiritually and anything we can for you as people. So much love. Do not let the hate win. From the Wild Witches, we love you.
Love ya. See ya.
Bye.
Love you.
Bye.
See ya.